welcome back to my channel, Thrive Pet Design. Today I'm going to be sharing with you an audio version of my Betta fish care guide. Okay, so you can visit it at
sites.google.com/view/thrive-pet-design/home.
And then you can go onto the sidebar and find the Betta fish one. Betta fish are a beautiful species of fish that are widely misunderstood, with a wide number of myths and misconceptions out in the world regarding their proper care. Doing your research will ensure that your Betta fish gets the best life possible with you. My care guide includes lots of information and everything that I think is important. It does go a bit more in depth when other care guides do not. It is a very comprehensive look into Betta fish keeping, and it will definitely help even if you haven't done preliminary research. But it will also help if you have. It really helps to answer any questions you may have, especially if you're confused about something like, have you heard of the nitrogen cycle? It will help explain more about what these subjects are and how to properly do them so that way your fish will thrive with you. I just wanted to mention that throughout this entire care guide, I might be including links to YouTube videos, projects, or shop sites. Obviously, they're not affiliated with this. They didn't help me create this care guide because I have like 50 subscribers. I'm just showing you where you can learn more about the products. So they're ones that I enjoy shopping and buying from, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. Fast facts. The scientific name for the Betta fish is Betta splendens. They come from Southeast Asia. Specifically, a lot of people know that they come from Thailand. They are about 2 to 3 inches in size. It really depends on what type of Betta fish you get though. They live about 3 to 5 years. In temperament, while varying from fish to fish, they are generally peaceful and can live in community aquariums, but this is something I touch on later as well. They are very easy to take care of, so I think that that is something really great for a beginner fish keeper. Water temperature, I would recommend that you keep them between 76 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit and 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. What is gallons to liters? Okay. The minimum tank size for a Betta fish is 5 gallons or about 19 liters. Natural habitat. Now, I'll be honest, when I'm reading a care guide, I don't find this section to be very important. However, with Betta fish, I think it's extremely important. I think the reason I don't find it important is because I kind of look at it and go, well, it's not nature here, but I think it is important specifically in breaking down many of the myths that we're talking about when keeping Bettas. For example, a lot of people say that Betta fish can live in bowls because they live in puddles in the wild. But when you look at their actual habitat, you can see that this just isn't how they live. Betta fish in the wild, they live in streams and even rice paddies that are literally flooded with water so the rice can grow properly. Yes, you heard me right, they are completely flooded. On my care guide on the website, I included photos and I will also include them on screen. But yeah, really, because of the nature of these conditions, the water tends to be shallow, but it's not like a puddle. It's not like a puddle you would see on the side of the road that you drive through and go, wee. Like, it's like, these are flooded fields of rice. They're very big. The water does tend to be shallow, yes, but this also means that the water is easily heated up by the sun, allowing for warmer temperatures in the water overall, which is why you need a heated aquarium. And also, while the water is shallow, it's very wide and long. So basically it has a low depth, but it's still very, very, very expansive. While it is true at times that the water will dry up to just puddles, Betta fish have a labyrinth organ which allows for them to take oxygen up from the surface of the water instead of the water column, like the way that many other fish like tetras or corydoras might. This is why Betta fish will take gulps from the surface of the water and how they can make bubble nests. It's so they can breathe, which is so cool. With this awesome adaptation, Betta fish can jump from different bodies of water, and they're always searching for somewhere that they can thrive. And so basically, if they did end up in a puddle in the wild, they would just jump out, so that way they can find somewhere else that is suitable for them. That is why a bowl will not cut it. And this is why you should also keep a lid on your aquarium, because they might jump out of the tank for a wide variety of different reasons, but one of them is poor water conditions, the way that they would in the wild. Additionally, the water in these rice paddies and streams are rich with something called tannins. Tannins are created by tree and plant leaves falling into bodies of water where they bleach, color, and stain the water a brown, kind of like, it's like tinted. It almost looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's called the Blackwater setup, however. And my wording almost makes it sound like a bad thing, like with the leaching into the water, but it can be so healthy for your betta. It naturally reduces stress, it helps keep their stress coat nice and healthy, and it also reduces the pH of the water, which is very nice for them, but that's just a bit more into kind of like the world of tannins. Now, keeping this in mind, let's discuss why bowls are not suitable for your fish. Tank or bowl? Yes, I know that chain pet stores sell betta fish in little cups. And yes, I know that chain pet stores and chains sell fish bowls. But does that mean that they are good for living creatures? No. I believe a 5-gallon tank is the perfect size for a single betta fish. If you're interested in doing a community tank, I would go for 10 plus gallons just to allow for more space and the proper stocking for each individual fish. Some people say that 2.5 gallons will work, but in my completely honest opinion, that isn't big enough for these splendid active fish. 2.5 gallons is better than a bowl, true, but it doesn't leave much room for enrichment and swimming and lounging around, all of the things that a betta fish will do daily. I think 2.5 gallons is a great amount of space if you are temporarily looking after a betta, or perhaps that is where you were keeping it for quarantine. But I do not think it is ideal for the whole 3 to 5 years you may have this fish. But still, if you are keeping your betta in a 2.5 gallon aquarium that is heated and filtered, good job. I just personally would feel uncomfortable offering my fish anything less than 5 gallons, but I will respect anyone who makes the choice to use 2.5 gallons. As long as the tank is 2.5 gallons or above, you're doing it right and making an ethical choice for your fish. Aquarium, filtration, and heating. A filter is a must in every betta fish aquarium. Fish are constantly producing waste, and filters not only move the water around, they also serve as a home for colonies of beneficial bacteria that will start to grow on your mechanical and biological filtration. While bacteria typically has a negative connotation, in this case it's an amazing thing. It helps turn deadly ammonia, fish waste, into nitrates, and then nitrates. Nitrates are completely safe to fish at low levels and can be removed with water changes. I will talk more about these big scary words when I go over the nitrated cycle later on. For your aquarium, you will want a filter that can gently move the water and is rated for your size aquarium. Bettas have delicate long fins, so a strong filter can push and pull them, which can be stressful. A sponge filter or internal flow filter is usually best and what is what I would recommend. I have also used hang-on back filters with pre-filter sponges with great success. Similar to the above, a heater is also a must for a betta fish aquarium. They can survive within the range of 72 to 86 degrees, this is in Fahrenheit, but will thrive for you in the range of 76 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe is 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. My betta aquarium is kept at a constant 80 degrees. I found that this is the perfect temperature for my betta, and he has been thriving with it for over a year now. He is so healthy. He loves it. Quite simply, room temperature will not cut it for these tropical species. If you refer to the natural habitat section, I do go over how the rice paddies and streams they live in are naturally heated by the sun. Another reason why these are not suitable is because it slows down metabolic activity, it can lead to issues like fin rot, and it's just overall not the way that they are supposed to live. They can survive, as I mentioned before, but they will not be having a good time. Live plants in Blackwater. Live plants are an amazing, underrated addition to every aquarium. They literally make owning an aquarium easier, provide natural stimulation to your fish, and look amazing. Here's a list of why I think you should consider adding live plants to your aquarium. Live plants help to remove ammonia and nitrates, meaning that you have a healthier aquatic ecosystem overall. Also, if you don't have live plants to absorb excess nutrients, you are likely going to get algae, which isn't bad, it just doesn't always look nice. It's personal preference. With the removal of ammonia and nitrates, you have to do water changes less often. Plants won't harm a betta fish's fins the way that sharp plastic decor might. Live plants offer natural stimulation and decor that keeps your tank more aesthetically pleasing. While this is not super important with the betta fish because they have a labyrinth organ, live aquarium plants help produce oxygen that can dissolve into the water column. This will especially be helpful if you plan on owning community fish. It helps make your aquarium even healthier overall. I honestly think that the only drawback is that you have to purchase an aquarium light, and it can get really expensive if you don't shop carefully. I highly encourage everyone to get live plants because it will really help your betta thrive and live the happiest and healthiest life with you. Now, Blackwater is a term I mentioned earlier, and it's a specific type of aquarium. Blackwater aquariums include a wide variety of tannins caused by driftwood as well as leaves and botanicals. Not only is this a super healthy environment for shrimp and snails, it helps naturally lower the pH of your water, create natural enrichment, and things for your betta to explore. Building your tank. Building your tank is one of the most exciting parts. After doing all the research, you can sit back and create something so beautiful, and it's why fish keeping is a magical hobby. First things first, you want to make sure your aquarium is secure and on something that can hold it, like an aquarium stand. A gallon of water tends to weigh about 8 to 10 pounds, so plan this out ahead of time. After doing all these necessary steps, I always start creating a tank or aquascape by building a base layer of substrate. After this, I add my decor or hardscape, and will add more substrate around this to what I think looks naturally best. You will want to make sure that any decor is not sharp enough to rip your betta's fins. You can do this by rubbing your hand over it and feeling the sharpness of it, or by running a pair of tights over them. Using tights may be the best way to ensure that decor won't harm your betta, but it feels wasteful to me, and I found that just running your hand over it to feel the natural textures is plenty. If something is too sharp, don't use it. Now, this is the point when I would add live plants. However, if you make the choice to go for silk plants, this is when you would add them. After adding your plants, decor, and substrate, you should fill your aquarium up with water. Make sure that it is completely dechlorinated. Filling up with water in this step will allow you to add your equipment, your heater, and filter to make sure that they all work properly. In the end, place an aquarium lid on your tank to prevent your fish from jumping out. If you don't include a lid, I would highly recommend that you at least lower the water level a few inches or cover the surface of the water with floating plants. However, lids are the way to go in my opinion. Now, many people at this step would just go out and buy a betta fish. While you can do this, this next section will outline the nitrogen cycle, which is something your tank will go through whether you intend it to or not. Many people make the mistake of setting up their first aquarium without first going through the nitrogen cycle. This process is extremely important, and your aquarium will go through it whether you intend it to or not. The process of cycling is basically a way to culture beneficial bacteria that will turn toxic ammonia, fish waste, and nitrate into nitrates, a substance that is safe for fish at low levels and can be easily removed with a water change. The reason that this is so important is because ammonia and nitrates can be toxic to fish at basically any level above 0 ppm. While betta fish are extremely hardy and can typically survive this cycling process, I still think it's beneficial for first-time fish keepers to do a fishless cycle. My philosophy on the matter is that it really helps teach you more about the chemistry of an aquarium and how to get used to just testing your water parameters daily. Doing a fishless cycle will dramatically reduce the stress of your betta. The majority of people will complete a fission cycle without even knowing it, however. Betta fish will almost always survive the nitrogen cycle, but it will still be stressful for them. And if they had an underlying health issue before, then it's very likely that they will not make it. A fission cycle can definitely lead to things such as ammonia burn or nitrate poisoning, two conditions which can be seen in fish who have been kept in bowls. Hopefully another point to explain why they are actually harmful. Basically, this is why I recommend a fishless cycle. While I have completed 3 fishless cycles in 3 different aquariums, I am going to link some guides in the description, and you should check those out. This is a necessary step, so even if you don't do a fishless cycle, you should at least understand the nitrogen cycle better. On screen I'm going to show an image about it, but I think that the guides in the description explain how to do a fishless cycle much better than I do. Performing water changes. After the month-long ordeal you just had with the nitrogen cycle, you will finally be ready for your first water change. Now, if you did a fish-in cycle, this will be a different story, and there'll be much more water changes involved. If you are keeping a betta-only aquarium, you won't have to do a water change as much as you would with a fully stocked community tank. I personally changed 25% of my betta fish's water every 2 weeks. That is what I did when I first started, and it was a really great and easy schedule for me. Now that I have more live plants, I have changed the schedule up. However, I would recommend for a beginner to do a water change almost every week, and if you have live plants, maybe you can push it to 2. However, my tank is heavily planted, and you should do more or less based on your stocking and plant levels and your water parameters. The best way to tell if you need to do a water change is by checking your water parameters with a water test kit. If your nitrates exceed 40 ppm, then you should do a water change. This is just in my personal opinion, and I've I think that that's the best way to ensure that your fish are always healthy. I keep heavily planted tanks, and I've never even had my nitrates exceed 20 ppm, but I still do water changes at least every 3 weeks to a month to ensure I'm adding fresh nutrients into my system for my plants, fish, shrimp, and snails to enjoy. To complete a water change, you will need a siphon, at least one water change bucket, and tap water conditioner. When adding new water to an aquarium, you will need to make sure the temperature difference isn't extreme, just because it can be stressful on your fish. If you end up making the temperature of the water too different, as I said, it can lead to stress and disease. Almost all water changes will occur without issue, but I just think it's important that you know that you dechlorinate all of your water and you ensure the temperature is the same. Bettafish Tankmates. Bettafish Tankmates are something I really go into on the website, and I highly recommend that you check it out because I made a Google sheet including all of the things, all of the very popular Tankmates and whether or not they will work. But I'm going to discuss this here on video. While there are many myths surrounding bettafish keeping, there are two here that I think I should address. The first myth being that bettafish are aggressive and should always be kept alone. As a matter of fact, bettafish tend to be quite peaceful, but it really depends on the individual personality of your fish. This is why that myth is wrong. The second myth is that many people believe that bettafish get lonely. I've seen people say, "My bettafish look lonely, and I got him 3 platies, and he killed them." Well, the thing is that while your bettafish may get bored from a lack of mental stimulation, they don't get lonely. They do not naturally require other animals nearby the way that tetras might. As a matter of fact, it can be stressful on your bettafish living in a community aquarium. So if your bettafish is acting bored, I would recommend enrichment instead of another animal in the tank. However, if your heart is set on setting up a community tank, I completely understand. My first aquarium was a Betta community tank, and when it was set up, it was literally amazing. I really enjoyed the interaction between my ember tetras and my Betta, and at the time, it was a good situation for me. I think there are a few important rules that come with keeping bettafish community tanks, however, and here they are. 1. Bettafish do not need tank mates.
Each bettafish has a different personality. My bettafish hates shrimp but loves fish. Some are the other way around. Don't assume that your fish will always enjoy being with other live animals. There are ways to test a personality in store, but you won't always know if something will work out until you add your betta in with the community fish. 3. While your betta may be the main star of the tank, remember that there are other fish in the tank too. If your bettafish is bullying them or the community fish are bullying your betta, you should have a backup option in case of an emergency separation. In my opinion, you should not set up a bettafish community if you do not have an emergency situation, or emergency separation rather. If you don't have that, I personally don't think you should be able to set one up. Just because your community tank is working one day, that doesn't mean it will always work. Watch for signs of aggression in case separation is required, and then refer to the previous step and go with the backup option. When done correctly, with lots of decor, hiding space, swimming space, and the right betta, a bettafish community can work. The beautiful colors of the bettafish will go with literally any species of fish and helps to create what feels like a living piece of art in your home. The betta will gain some mental stimulation from having tank mates, but as I mentioned, don't get tank mates just because your betta is looking lonely, like they're bored, but there are other ways you can give them that stimulation. Obviously, they will get some sort of stimulation out of tank mates, but I don't think getting tank mates is the reason that you should. I don't think you should get tank mates just for your betta. I think you should get it so it's set up as an ecosystem and with everyone in mind. I hope that makes sense. On screen is a spreadsheet that I created with species of fish that can work with a bettafish. This is based on my experience and research. I have everything I used on the second page. I am going to link this in the description because you obviously can't read everything at the time. But it's very in-depth, I think. I don't think it goes super in-depth, but I think it's very cool and can really help you, especially when you're looking for a baseline. Bringing your betta home. You can buy a bettafish from a wide variety of places. You can rescue a betta from someone rehoming it online, you can buy it from a big chain pet store, a local fish store, or a local breeder. I feel like the list could be even longer. Because of the popularity, they are easily found and purchased. However, I personally wouldn't recommend that you buy one from a big chain pet store, just because of the conditions that they were kept in. It's honestly I understand that big chain pet stores can be helpful to the hobby, and they help more people get into fish keeping, which is going to be really helpful for the fish keeping hobby. However, it's because you know the conditions they're kept in these cups. They are poor water conditions. There's no substrate or filter or harbor for any sort of beneficial bacteria, meaning that it's just ammonia and nitrates in there. So they're going to be stressed, and sometimes they can be overfed, and they can sometimes have diseases. I've seen a lot of them that are bloated or constipated or have swim bladder. Some of them, I've never seen any of them have ick in the store, but it's possible that when you bring them home they can get ick. It's just because in general they're going to be stressed, so I personally wouldn't get them from there. However, I go more into that reasoning on the website. One other note, I would not buy the baby bettas. Please do not. They are a lot of work, and they are not for a beginner fish keeper. They are not easy to take care of. I don't think that they should be sold, in my honest opinion. If you do want to go to a local or a big chain pet store, because maybe you don't have a local fish store nearby, buy an adult, please. They will do much better for you. And if you hear my opinions and still want to go there, that's fine. Obviously, I applaud you for doing the right thing and getting your Betta and doing all the care and research for it. I would definitely suggest that you get your Betta from a local fish store or breeder. Just personally, I found that they're much better. However, not all local fish stores are created equally, and sometimes their Bettas aren't healthy. Like one of my local fish stores, the Bettas are kept solely in community tanks. They're so healthy. And then another one, they're all kept in like these mason jars. It's disgusting. So basically to that, it's you can choose where you buy them from. Ultimately, I like going to the LFS because you're supporting a small business, and that makes me feel nice, and the products are still the same quality, sometimes even better quality, and sometimes they're kept in great conditions, and they can also help you answer any questions you may have before bringing them home. I also rescued my first Betta, if that's something any of you are interested in. I will link a video up above about how to add new fish into an aquarium. I highly suggest that you use it when adding your Betta fish into their first tank. Feeding your Betta. Feeding your Betta is such a fun daily ritual to complete with your fish. I think that there are a few important things, is that 1, Betta fish look like they are always hungry. 2, your Betta fish has a stomach that is literally the size of their eyeball. And 3, they require a varied diet. Just because they sell all these Betta pellet products, that doesn't mean that they can just eat those. So yeah, I'm going to touch upon all of these as I kind of keep talking. But yeah, basically, Betta fish are like puppies, but the important thing to remember is they have a small stomach, so they can quickly become overfed, and they can get health implications as a result. And these are no joke. They're very serious. It's usually not like they go overweight. It's usually, I've found that they will quicker show signs of things like constipation and swim bladder disorder. So yeah, that's very serious, not to try to put you off, because obviously once you figure out the proper feeding schedule, this is not an issue. Okay, so I personally do 2 smaller daily feedings. Some people do 1 1 bigger daily feeding. Like my care guide on screen, I'm going to show you how I feed my Betta fish every week. Obviously, I switch around the days and the times that they get these foods, but it's just important to remember that Betta fish should always have a fasting day to kind of clear out their system. I highly recommend fluval bug bites, Northfin Betta bits, Kari Betta pellets, and bloodworms to feed your Betta, although I also use a variety of frozen food and other types of omega-1 products. Common diseases and ailments. While I widely have experience with almost every other aspect of Betta fish care, I don't have much experience with illness with Betta, and this is something I'm very thankful for, but it means I don't have much experience to share here. However, I have done a lot of research, so basically, everything that I've done, it's basically just really important that you just make sure that you don't have to chase water parameters, but you should make sure that you don't have ammonia and no nitrate. You can have some nitrates and just keep on top of water changes, and usually you will not see an issue as long as your temperature is right, the parameters are okay, and you're filtering your tank. Every day, I recommend you check on your Betta fish to see how they're doing. If you notice any symptoms like loss of color, they're acting lethargic, they have ripped fins, any white spots on their body, cloudy eyes, white eyes, fungus, gill flukes, you should immediately check your water parameters and temperature. Most, but obviously not all, diseases are caused by poor water quality and or stress. So maybe you put off a water change for too long, or you fed too much food one day. Whatever the case, it can all lead to disease, which is why it's important that you don't have to be perfect, but I would recommend that you make sure that everything is okay every day. This is just from my experience, and I have not had my betta fish get sick yet. Once you have figured out the symptoms, it is typically easier to diagnose the problem if you don't already know what it is. Like something more diagnosable, like easy to see, like ick, you can probably tell right away. If you see white spots in your betta on like the body, you're like, oh, that's probably ick, usually. But something more like velvet that maybe people haven't heard of, you might have to research to understand, or Popeye. Not everyone knows what Popeye is, even though it's pretty common. So after doing some research on betta fish disease, and if you still don't know what the problem is, I would recommend that you go on an aquarium forum. Fishlore.com is a great forum that actually has an emergency template for you to fill out to give people information, so that way you can figure out what the issue at hand is. I would also recommend including a picture of the issue. It's one of my favorite forums, and everyone is so nice and knowledgeable. If you have any questions after reading this care guide, I would suggest asking them there. Not everyone may be right, but they give you a good idea on how to build your own opinions in your baseline to begin keeping betta fish. I think the most important thing to remember is that if your fish gets sick, it's all part of your fish keeping journey. It's awful when your betta fish gets sick. It's so frustrating. You feel like you can't do anything. And I don't want to try to take away from that, the fact that it's horrible, but I use it as a learning opportunity to try to help other bettas in the future, so I hope other people can learn as well. Betta fish shopping list. Wow, this was a long care guide. I think it must have been like 20 minutes? I don't know, I'm still filming. Now this is the end. It's a last item for a bit of fun, a reward for listening to my super long care guide, and probably my boring, droning voice. Below I have a link to everything I would recommend that you get when bringing your betta fish home. It's very helpful, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. At a certain point in fish keeping, you realize that they're more than just fish and they deserve everything. Bye.